Welcome everybody to our first of our seminars for our Teaching and Learning for a Sustainable World, Developing a Network of Research and Practice Seminar Series. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with a karakia. And please feel free to join in. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa po namo te moana, hei huarahi mā tātou I te rangi nei, aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou I a tātou katoa, hui e, taiki e. Now, our agenda today, we've started with a welcome and a karakia, and then I'm going to spend a short time introducing our project and myself, and then Dr. Manuel Vallée is going to do his presentation. And while he's doing his presentation, please think of some questions because we're going to have a question time, and then we'll close with me talking about future seminars we've got lined up and a closing karakia. So first of all, our project, first of all, we need to acknowledge our host, which is Ngā Ara Whetu, which is an interdisciplinary research centre in the University of Auckland. And you can see here our project sits at the nexus of teaching, research and engagement, and it's supported by Ngā Ara Whetu. And the aim of Ngā Ara Whetu is to have thriving people and planetary well-being. So our thanks to the centre for hosting us. Now, my name's Sally Birdsall, and I'm one of the leaders of this particular project, along with Nikki Hare and Alice Longley, and we're supported by Dan Kelly, and he's done a wonderful job of helping us organise this seminar. And our project aims to develop a transdisciplinary research network, and we're wanting to know about ways that we can teach and learn for a sustainable world. So we're looking at teaching strategies and approaches that'll help us teach and help learning in a sustainable world in our university. And we're also collaborating across faculties and with our community members. And I see we've got quite a few people from our community here today, so a special welcome to them. So one of the outcomes of our project is to host the seminar series. And you'll see we've got a series of seminars coming up, and we've got presenters from our growing network, and we've also got some international experts that we hope will pique your interest and give you ideas that we can all integrate and use in our own teaching. So I'd like to introduce Dr. Manuel Vallée, and he's going to talk about maintaining student engagement when teaching about environmental problems. And Manuel is in the Faculty of Arts and Sociology at our university, and his research focuses on factors that mediate the capacity to be sustainable, and he particularly focuses on environmental pollution. And in his study and research, he looks at social processes through which people get exposed to toxicants, inequalities in such exposures, and the health harms associated with them, the drivers of pollution, and how dominant institutions, such as government agencies and corporations, produce ignorance and false knowledge about environmental harms, and how higher education contributes to the problems. And as you can see from the title of his talk today, he's particularly focusing on student engagement. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to welcome Manuel, and he's going to start speaking about student engagement when teaching about environmental problems. So thank you, Manuel, and I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you to Dan for organizing this, and thank you for our host, Ngā Ara Whetu, for hosting, supporting these endeavors, which is great. I'm going to share, I do have some slides, so I'm going to share some slides here. Okay. So as you can see, I slightly tweaked the title for my talk from maintaining to building. Uh, in my endeavors, I have been looking at student engagement. I have written about the topic. It's one of the areas of research as well. And it's something I've taken a keen interest in with regards to sociology, because sociology has, was born at the uh-oh. Why is this? Now it's good to go. Um, Sociology was born at the confluence of major social disruptions in the 19th century between democratic revolutions, industrialization, mass migrations, colonialism. And sociology has been studying these problems. And unfortunately, this has been good for sociology in the sense that we've had a lot of problems to study. And it's been a concern of mine in sociology courses that students can get overwhelmed with the sheer mass of problems that we are having to deal with in the world. And I've really, for many years now, been practicing an approach where I really am focused on student engagement. And as I deliver the bad news, I need to keep an eye on the student engagement. It's really important. And I think it's particularly salient with regards to environmental problems, given the scope and depth of the problems. So what I'm going to do today, oops, I lost the word there. So I'm going to talk a bit about the problem. I'm going to talk a bit about my general approach to student engagement, the assignment I have for the environmental sociology course, and some of the benefits of this two-part assignment, and then we'll have a Q&A. So the problem. As I briefly alluded to a couple of minutes ago, we've got a mass of social problems, from air pollution to flooding, from rising sea levels that are associated with climate change to projections. I mean, I don't think New York has flooded to this degree yet, but we're constantly being alerted to the potentials, the social futures that await for us, and that can cause apprehension for students who are taking in this information. And the waste pollution problem, the incineration problem, which creates toxicants, which is associated with cancer, etc. And the talking heads who take up a lot of airspace in our media spaces, and it's the sheer onslaught of environmental problems can overwhelm students and trigger apathy, which is not what we're aiming for. I mean, when I teach a course, one of the things I want to do is inspire students, I guess, first awaken to the problems, but be inspired and empowered to actually do something about them. And so if at the end of the semester, students are overwhelmed and disengaged because they don't feel there's anything they can do about the problems, I've lost. That's not what I was aiming for. So my solution, part of my solution, I've got kind of a wizard's bag of tricks that I pull out. One of them is to discuss resistance movements so that they know that there has been a precedence where people have been talking to power, and also the whole environmental justice angle, where people have been coming together as communities and pushing back and making, in some areas, concrete successes. So that's part of it, is to get them to know that in our very atomized world, there are collective responses that have emerged in the past and continue to emerge to this day. I also offer a vision of what could be. I think it's important to give students a vision of what could happen if they actually apply themselves to fixing the problem, if they're inspired to do so. We talk about examples for every environmental problem, like this one is what we talk about, food waste associated problems. I flip it around and show, well, there are people who are working to minimize food waste and to actually better disperse the food that's available, the excess food that's available. We have cities where a cycling culture has thrived. It's not like Copenhagen has always been a cycling mecca. In many respects, it was equivalent to the situation we have today, where cyclists fear for their lives when they take their bikes to the streets. And it took a concerted, focused group of people pushing the policy envelope to change the infrastructure to make it more friendly to cyclists. And over the last 50 years, they've progressively gotten to a space where you have a tremendous cycling culture. Green buildings, so green buildings and green roofs and the importance of green roofs, not just green roofs have a number of potential benefits, including insulation, acting as an insulator for decreasing the energy consumption, but also for recycling water. There's a lot of countries, a lot of cities that actually passed ordinances that require new buildings to have green roofs. And so there are things that are happening around the world that are really inspiring and can provide an example for students to seek to emulate. So that's an important part of my shtick, to try to get them engaged, to get them, offer them hope. Another is I offer a vision what could be through fiction. So one of the books I assign is Ecotopia, which gives talks about the potential, how a society would look like if they made ecological survival their number one value above economic growth. And it gives, and I've written a paper on this particular topic and talked about how it's impacted students and how it's inspired them and how it's given them a vision of what could be, which they found has increased their engagement. And, I think it's important to have a steady dose of humor. As Charlie Chaplin once said, a day without laughter is a day wasted. So, I do try to incorporate laughter and humor to the extent I can. I think is really important. Here's the pot shot at economists. You can't have an infinite growth on a finite planet. Obviously, you're not an economist who believes that we can have infinite growth. I really love it when I show this particular one. Courage, do one brave thing today and then run like hell. So humor is really important. I always try to get them to laugh at least once, if not multiple times during the lecture. It just kind of breaks up the tension. And then, let's see. So I do have some more deeply grounded principles to student engagement that I follow in the design of my courses. And these are relevance, transparency, and fairness. When students see the relevance of the course, the readings that they do, the assignments that they work on, they're more likely to be engaged. If they have transparency in terms of what's expected of them, that too can help maintain engagement in the course and the subject matter. And if there's fairness in the grading structure so that they have the means and capacity to succeed, there too, they will engage at a higher level. If students are in a course where they feel they have little chances of success, they're not going to put much of their energies in that course. They're going to reallocate their energies and focus to other courses. This has been, there's many studies that have shown this. So I'm going to kind of speak about my particular assignment for environmental sociology, and I'll echo these points about relevance, transparency, and fairness as we go on. So relevance. So, there's different things I try to do to build relevance. And one is explaining how the course could benefit them right at the start. And this is not, I tell them, but we have a conversation where, I elicit the responses from them. We have a brainstorming session where I ask them, so, how do you think the course could benefit you? And some of the things that tend to come in get talked about, and if they don't talk about it, then I will chime in at some point. But having knowledge about the environment is particularly important for the workplace. I think that going forward, and environmental problems aren't going to go away; they're only going to become more salient, and you're going to have more organizations that are going to be looking for people that have a capacity for understanding the ecological issues of the day and how to position their particular organizations, whether it be government, nonprofits, schools, business sector, whatever, to better address those issues. The course would give them better preparation for academic research if they continue going down that line. And the information will also help them become more effective citizens in the sense that they're going to have a greater eco-literacy, and they're going to have a better understanding of how ecosystems work, how to recognize when they're in distress, and what are some of the things that previous groups have done to address those problems. The other thing I do to increase relevance is assign relevant and accessible readings. So I do try to, and part of this is sometimes it's not entirely apparent. I mean, if we're assigning readings from, let's say, Norway and United States and Spain, sometimes I have to remind them that, what we're after is not the content-based knowledge, but the abstract knowledge that we can extract from those cases and then relate back to Aotearoa and Auckland, and perhaps the University of Auckland in particular. So part of it is assigning materials that I think are relevant, but then also I have to have the communication piece in the classes so that they understand what the relevance is, why it is that we're actually spending time with those readings. And then creating assignments that they can personalize and which will speak to their interests. When students can personalize an assignment, can focus the assignment on something that they have an interest in, they're going to give more of themselves. And I've had students in both this class and my medical sociology class at the end of the semester, in just kind of random conversations afterward, tell me something along the lines of, "You tricked us." I was going, "What do you mean I tricked you? You tricked us into working harder in this class." I was like, how did I do that? Because you got us working on things that we're interested in. I was like, go figure. So the assignments for environmental sociology. So the assignment structure is actually a two-part structure. And there's a scaffolding assignment, and then there's a main assignment. And I'll talk about both. The scaffolding assignment consists of basically three prompts. The first is to identify an environmental issue that speaks to them for the reasons that I just mentioned. It's really important, and I stress this in class. I tell them it's really important that you find something that you're interested in. Don't do something you think I'm interested in, because if you're doing something you're interested in, not only will you get something, will you get more out of it, but so will we, because your writings can be stronger. You can have more to say. You can be more passionate about it. And then I have them discuss why the public should be concerned about the issue. And I think that's it's kind of rhetoric 101, where, if you're going to speak to an audience, if you're going to become an effective communicator, it's important to be able to communicate or address the "so what" question. Why should we care? And so this is something I have them start thinking about early on in the semester, about how to, it's not that their issue might not matter, it's how to frame it, learn how to frame it in a way to get us interested. Because if they can do that, it's going to make their writing more powerful. And these are things I want them to work at the beginning in a scaffolding assignment. That's not worth very much. I think it's worth like 10% of the grade, but it's just, it's used as a prompt to get them to start thinking about these things, so that they're thinking about them over the course of the semester, because these are items that they can then fold back into the main assignment later in the second half of the semester. And then, and this kind of comes back to my point about wanting to create courses that point to success stories. What they'll need to do for the main assignment is to talk about either universities or cities. So for the scaffolding assignment, I ask them to identify a university or city that is leading on this issue, and to explain what they've done on the issue, whether it's water pollution, whether it's having green roofs, whether it's addressing air pollution, whether it's addressing biodiversity loss, whatever the issue is. I want them to identify a city, or one city. Some get overly ambitious and try to do more, and I have to kind of scale them back. I just want to have them focus on one, so they can have an easier time of doing the comparative analysis in the second half of the semester. But I asked them to pick one case, and not only will this set them up to do the comparative assignment, but again, it comes back to the point about giving them hope, having them see that there are many places in the world that are actually addressing effectively the issue that they're interested in, which translates to student engagement. When they know that there's hope for the future, they're going to be they'll remain engaged in the course. For the main assignment, I have them do a comparative analysis. So if they're doing if their focus is on universities, then they'll do a comparative analysis. Let's say their issue is campuses that are dealing with air pollution by providing free public transportation to all their students and staff. So, there's a number of schools that have done this, universities that have done this. There's University of Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon, University of San Diego. And what I then ask them to do is to compare and contrast their chosen case with University of Auckland. And particular things I have them do is talk about the goals or / targets in each case. If it's the University of San Diego, California, San Diego, they need to tell me, well, what are the goals that they've set themselves to reduce their impact or contribution to air pollution, or perhaps it's global warming, and then to compare the same for University of Auckland. And then I ask them to pursue or to identify the activities that have been pursued by each case to address the issue, to identify the similarities and differences, and also to identify the results obtained thus far in each case. And doing this comparative analysis, there's a number of benefits, and I have a separate slide that's going to talk about benefits, but I feel compelled to actually talk about some benefits here. Doing this comparative analysis gives them a sense of where we can improve as an institution, and it helps avoid. They can be cynical about our university attempts, but not cynical to the point where they're hopeless that something can be done about it, because they've already identified other cases where they're not talking about addressing the problem. They've done it. They're in the process of doing it, or have made great progress in actually accomplishing the goals that they've set for themselves. So that's one benefit. And some students do focus at the university level, and some will want to focus on the city level. So it's the same thing, where if they're focusing on the city level, for example, food composting, they'll look at, each city's goals for addressing food waste, the activities they pursued to address the issue of food waste, and the results obtained thus far in each case. And invariably, there's going to be a divergence between the leading case and the local case. And the next part of the assignment is to actually do a causal analysis using a comparative lens. So I ask them to analyze the source of differences. And one of the things, one of two aspects of that analysis that I have them do is an institutional analysis. So if we're talking about universities again, if we're talking about at the university level, I'll ask them to look at the mission statement. I'll ask them to look at the endowment that each university has, and to compare and contrast the endowment. I'll ask them and to think about what the implications are of the differences that they find between the two institutions. If they can get information about student activism or student group activity, that could be part of their analysis. If they're, what else? campus strategies or university strategies. If they can get hands on their documents for the two institutions, that's another thing I'll ask them to compare and contrast and to do the analysis of what are the implications. And then the other part about trying to identify the source of the differences is I have them conduct a contextual analysis because any organization's activities are going to be embedded within the larger context, which includes the policy context, includes the geographical context, it includes the cultural context. And if you're thinking about, for example, food waste, and you're comparing University of Auckland to University of British Columbia, one of the things that has really driven UBC to have a strong composting program is the fact that they're paying, I believe, per kilo, they're paying 7 times more to send it to landfill. And so that's a huge incentive for an institution to get their act together. And it's through this contextual analysis, they get a sense of what are the contextual factors that can mediate the organization's behavior. So that's the assignment in a nutshell, and I do want to spend a couple minutes talking about the benefits of all of the way I've structured these assignments. One is that there's some benefits with regards to the low points scaffolding assignment. One, because it's only worth 10%, they have the freedom to explore without worrying and stressing about their grades, about going down a bad path that could torpedo the ability to do well in the course. And I am giving them an opportunity to explore things that they are interested in, which is really paramount for me. I give them early feedback that either reassures them that they're on the right track, or if they're not, which invariably happens, I give them feedback that's guided towards helping them succeed in the larger, more grade weighted assignment at the end. So the feedback gives them an opportunity, if they put in the work, to succeed. And fair assignments that enable success preserves engagement, student engagement. That's one of the things that the literature is quite clear about. When students have a sense that something is fair, something that's doable, that they can accomplish this, they're more likely to invest in the course, in a particular assignment, but in the course overall. So this is and one of the things I started with scaffolding assignments in my medical sociology course, and I realized the impact it was having, the positive impact it was having on students, and so I've integrated scaffolding assignments in all my courses, including postgraduate courses. And the assignment, it encourages them to find success story instead of staying in the apathetic or cynical space. I'm encouraging to get to familiarize yourself with the amount of great work that people are doing around the world on environmental issues, which can reduce apathy and increase student engagement. With regards to the benefits of a comparative analysis, helps them see how their local context can improve, as I mentioned before. It also gives them a tool. It gives them the capacity for comparative thinking. It sharpens their comparative lens that can be a very powerful lens for providing analytical leverage to understand a situation. If we're looking at a case on its own, we're not necessarily, there's a certain amount of information that we can gather and develop about that case, but there's always going to be structural factors in the background that are really hard to perceive, let alone write about. And when you start comparing cases where you have divergent outcomes, it helps bring those background mediating factors to the foreground. Makes them more visible, evident, and so that we can write about them and provide more effective analyses. The benefits of the causal analysis that I ask them to do is that it empowers them to be agents of change by giving them an understanding of the institutional factors that influence an organization's environmental behavior. By getting a better understanding of, better understanding of particular factors, what we're talking about emission. If I'm asking them to compare the mission statement and they see that sustainability at some places is absolutely at the core of the mission statement, whereas in other institutions it's not, that's a pretty fair indicator of how much that particular institution values environmental issues. I'm glad to say that this institution has progressed tremendously on that note. Sustainability is one of our Tamatete's core values. So that's going to be one less factor that my future students will be able to kind of point to when they're trying to account for environmental issues that we haven't made as much progress on. But still, looking at mission statements is really important. Looking at the amount of funding that's provided for sustainability programs, that could be something that they get a better understanding of. Understanding where sustainability offices are structured within the organization structure can also make an impact. If you're going to have your sustainability office stationed in property services, they're going to have a different focus. They're going to be aligned to different goals than would be the case if you have a sustainability office that has direct access to the vice chancellor or president. So where the sustainability office sits in their organization can make a huge impact in terms of what gets rolled out. So getting them to better understand the different factors within an institution and how those factors can mediate things can help them as students, perhaps just as students now, but perhaps later on, get them to better understand organizations from an analytical perspective, where their focus is on understanding, well, what are the mediating factors and how can we shape those or change those mediating factors to enable the change that we want to see. And they can be empowered by the contextual analysis because they better understand that an organization doesn't behave in a vacuum, political vacuum, or contextual vacuum, or geographical vacuum. It's embedded and mediated by the policy, geographical, and cultural context in which it's embedded, and it can give them a sense of perhaps, if there's geographic limitations, it can give them a sense of what the limitations are as to what a particular institution can do. But if there's particular policies that are helping shape the way, for example, if you have one institution is sitting in a policy context where legislation's been passed that incentivizes universities to reduce the amount of chemical waste that they produce, it's not a big surprise when that institution actually passes policy that's designed to take advantage of the government's policies that incentivize that behavior. And the next step is then they can become agents of change with regards to working to change the policy context, either as political representatives within the establishment or activists or concerned citizens. And then the last benefit that I'll mention is that transparency is really important. One of the things I really emphasize right from the start with these assignments is giving them a sense of how these assignments can provide these benefits to them. Again, I'm trying to incentivize the behavior. I'm trying to get them to be engaged because it will benefit them. If they understand how things can benefit them, we can tap into the intrinsic motivation that is so much more powerful than the extrinsic motivation of doing things for grades. And that's me. That's my presentation. So thank you for your rapt attention, and I look forward to any questions you might have and discussions that might emerge from this.